What a cool coffee mug. And this is my journal page for March 2024. So let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. Before I start getting into any of the material that I want to go over for my March journal page, I first want to kind of celebrate a little bit by letting everyone know March, the end of March, actually marks my 2-year anniversary on YouTube with this particular channel. I'm very excited about it. I wasn't sure how this new endeavor of a YouTube channel, kind of blogging about my solo experiences and talking about products, would turn out. And it's been a steady growth, no explosion growths or anything, but just a steady growth over the last 2 years that have helped me develop some new habits when it comes to recording and doing things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of, I guess, pat myself on the back. I did this for 2 years, and I think the channel's been doing very good. I've learned a lot about myself as a kind of a creator and kind of the things I like to do and the videos that people are more attracted to coming from me. I'm kind of a more of a crafter kind of guy. Like I make my dice trays and I do bookbinding and stuff like that. So I'm kind of crafty that way. And this coffee mug is another example of some of the crafty things that I do. So my wife and I are both hobbyists. She has a ton of crafting hobbies that she has always been involved with. She has a whole huge crafting room. And recently she got into sublimation printing, which is what this is. This is an example of sublimation printing. These are done on a special kind of cup from Cricut, which, she's big into her Cricut machines and cutting stuff because they have like a polyester coating on them where we can print out the image on a special printer and heat press this stuff on. And this was an experiment that we were doing that just turned out awesome because I can make the size of the image as big as I want it. I can put multiple images on these. I can just have a lot of fun. I have a little bit more creativity, but I am limited in what I can do as far as coffee mugs themselves go. This is a 15-ounce coffee mug, which is awesome. I made it so the image is sticking out because I'm left-handed and I want people to see that, but you're not going to see it on camera. Again, it's kind of cool that my wife's hobby and my hobby kind of merge. I've been making these for friends with different images. So for the department I work, I put the company badge on and printed one out. And I've done some for my streaming channel for my buddy Jeff and I. I got our logo on it. So just been having some fun. I don't need 100 coffee cups, but I do like having some options. And I use coffee mugs for cleaning paintbrushes. Here's my Bob Ross coffee mug that I've used for years for cleaning paintbrushes. So now I can upgrade to a Solitary RPG coffee mug. So let's get into this month's journal page. This was just the way I wanted to kick it off, kind of talk a little bit about the channel. That's about as much as I'm going to talk about. And kind of share this cool coffee mug that I made invading my wife's craft room. I'm going to start this month out a little bit different. As you know, if you've been watching the channel for a while, I do a lot of self-improvements, studying Stoic philosophy, things like that. Atomic Habits is a book that I recently started reading, and I came across a passage earlier this month as I'm rereading this book that I felt was something that would be worth sharing on the channel. And let me flip to that page. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm not going to make you read it. I refer to this as the difference between being in motion and taking action. The two ideas sound similar, but they are not the same. When you're in motion, you are planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce results. Action, on the other hand, is a type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. If I outline 20 ideas for an article I want to write, that's motion. If I actually sit down and write the article, that's action. If I search for a better diet plan and read a few books on a topic, that's motion. If I actually eat a healthy meal, that's action. And the reason I wanted to bring that passage up is this is something I've been guilty of planning. I plan myself right out of doing things. And this is why I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to live more in action, not in motion. And for playing solo RPGs, I see this in groups and comments and things like that. How do I get started? How do I do this? And everyone's so busy being in motion, planning, trying to figure out the best way to do it. And the best way to do it is to put yourself into action. Sit down at the table with an RPG book and just start playing and just let things happen. Yeah, you need some planning. You need to know what kind of oracle you're going to use or something like that. You may need to do some prep work with character generation or whatnot, but keep in mind, everything you do is kind of RPGing. So if you sit down and just generate a character, you are kind of playing solo RPGs. You're creating a character, a backstory, you're doing something. And that's kind of what I wanted to share. And I just read that passage earlier in the month. I was like, man, that is so right on with the comments and things that I see. It says everyone seems to be planning to play RPGs solo, but they're not actually sitting down and playing the RPGs solo. And I just think maybe take that as advice for whatever it's worth. But if you're interested in playing solo RPGs, just sit down and start doing it. Stop planning. Stop buying the books of tables and this oracle and that oracle and this thing and that thing and whatever else that content creators like myself throw out there. Just sit down and start playing the game. So, little piece of solitary RPG advice, and this is a good book. So if you haven't read it, you might consider. If you're trying, I'm really trying to redevelop my habits as a person, and this book is helping me out a lot. So I finished my big commission job in March that I was working on. I still cannot share the work that I've done for that commission job. However, I can share that from being paid doing that commission job, I bought some new stuff. So whenever I do commission work, I like to reinvest some of my money back into my hobby because I don't do it for a living. I don't need to pay my electric bill or my water bill or my mortgage or anything like that with the money I make from commission. It is simply money that I piss off on whatever the hell I want. This commission job, I just kind of sock the money away because I'll be going to Gen Con in 2024. So I want to have some mad money when I'm at Gen Con. But I did buy the new Army Painter 2.0 Speed Paint Mega Set and Bundle box. And I am in love with this paint. I am a big Pro Acryl painter. Like I use I continue to buy Pro Acryl paint. I always support Jason over there at Monument Hobbies. He's local to Arizona, and I buy all of his paints. I love his paints. I promote him a lot. But I picked these up because I do use contrast paint from GW, and I also use express paints from Vallejo, and that's about it. But I have very little faith in GW keeping a product line around. They're just 20 plus years in the hobby. GW has done a lot of things with their paint ranges, and I've gotten used to certain paints from them just to have them discontinue them. So Army Painter is a little bit more stable and a little bit more reliable of keeping products around. Just because they're not as big of a corporation as GW. For them, if a product is not making enough profit, they will drop it. Not that it's not making any profit, it's just not making them enough profit, so they get rid of it because for whatever reason they feel maybe rebranding and remaking or redoing something will increase the profit margin. That's just how big corporations work. Army Painter is a little bit of a smaller company, a little bit more reliable. And I bought this paint set and I love it. This is not like contrast paint. This is better, in my opinion, then contrast paint. It's more really thinned down regular paints, and I've been having a blast using them. In addition to buying this, I also bought myself, you're not going to be able to really see these. These are Winsor Newton Series 7 Kolinsky paintbrushes. This is a #1. I picked up a couple more new paintbrushes because this is the tool of my trade. This is my hammer to a carpenter. This is my tool, but I am hard on my paintbrushes. I beat paintbrushes up because they are a tool. This is not something I'm going to pass down the generations like some people do their tools. These are going to get used and abused and thrown away because the bristles will start coming down, wearing off and breaking off and stuff. So, and since I'm talking about paintbrushes and paint and all the cool stuff that goes in with that, I should follow up with some of the things in my last video. I finished this model that was sent to me from Rob over at Adventure with Dice. This is the Wolfkin model from Free League Publishing's Dragonbane, and Rob is part of a subscription service that they were releasing models from Dragonbane for STL files so people can 3D print them. I don't 3D print, but Rob sent me a cool collection of these models. This is the first one I painted. I haven't decided who's next, but this one is finished and I love it. Just turned out beautiful. I also pre-ordered a bunch of miniatures from Next Level Miniatures, and they showed up and I started painting them. The one I was really most excited about was the Wizard, and this is what that speed paint can do. That blue, that kind of blue-gray color, I was trying to go for the Gandalf look, is just Army Painter 2.0 speed paint. It's a few different coats on there, very controlled in the way I laid it down so that it didn't pool or anything like that, but I did nothing else on top of that. All of my models, when I paint them, I do a zenithal highlight, so I shoot them black and then I shoot on top of them some white. That is all I did with this model. So this is the Wizard. This is a new model released from Next Level Miniatures from a Kickstarter. And I just love it. This paint turned out great. The flesh tone from the Army Painter is amazing. You can go one and done. Like, they've got a few different shades of flesh tone. You can just put down one coat of flesh tone speed paint and you could call it done, but I go in and I glaze in some brighter tones and things like that with the hands and the face. Here's an assassin I did, and I did a little bit of a cheat on this that I do for leather work. I need to really zoom in though and bring in some light so you can see what I've got going on here, because it doesn't really show up on this. But if you look at that cloak, you're going to see kind of a red tint going through that cloak. So what I ended up doing for this, because to me this is an assassin, so they need to be camouflaged, so I didn't want to do any bright highlighting on the model's cloak because I want them to be able to live in the shadows. So I almost want them to disappear a little bit. So what I ended up doing was using the black speed paint on the cloak, which went on beautifully. Like, the black contrast paint is crap, but the speed paint 2.0 is amazing. But then after it dried, I went over the raised edges with a red Blood Angels contrast paint and kind of creates that leather tone to it. So that's kind of a cheat I do with some of my blacks because I don't necessarily want it to have gray highlights, because I want, gray kind of pops out. I figured this cloak is maybe kind of magical, or it's a specially made cloak that allows the assassin to totally go into the shadows. Just my theory behind it. So this is the assassin model, and then I went with some bright colors for the pants and the red mask and things like that, just to add some visual interest to the model, so that people have something to draw their eye to, because the cloak kind of disappears in the background, which to me is what it's supposed to do. And then I also painted a Minotaur. This was not a new release from Next Level Miniatures. This one has been out for a while. But I just got around to painting it. One of the YouTube channels I follow he mentioned something about a Minotaur, and I'm like, hey, I need to paint one of those. And I had this one laying around, so I just broke it out and painted it. Going for some darker skin tones on this, just kind of working with some of my colors. This was not done with the new speed paints. And the way I've used these speed paints or contrast paints is I use them for base coats. So I put down these because they go on really, really thin. That's the whole idea behind them. That way the undertones come out, the whites and the blacks and everything kind of come out. But I'll just put down the contrast paint or the speed paints or whatever thin paints I have and just use it for color tones. Get an idea, like my color palette, like do I like the way the blue and the white and everything kind of blend together, and I just kind of get an idea for my colors. And then what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll glaze over it and I'll darken things up and I'll put in shadows and things like that. So that's how this is done. And you'll notice the axe has kind of a blue tint. One of the things I like to do to metals is add some kind of a blue tone or a purple tint to them just to make them different. I think just plain silver with a black wash is boring. So I add a little bit of blue, kind of like maybe like an ice axe. I'm not trying to create any kind of non-metallic look or anything like that. I just add some visual. I just think silver with a black wash is lame. So anyways, so those are a couple that I've worked on. I've got a couple more. Like this is one of the new models that I started working on from their recent release. And like this flesh tone, like that flesh tone turned out really nice. It's kind of hard to show off on camera. That's using the new speed paints with just me going in and taking some of my Pro Acryl and just glazing over it and just making things pop. So I saw this model, I really liked it, and it kind of, I went with a Santa Claus vibe. I went with a red shirt. I didn't go with red pants. I kind of went with a plum color for the pants. And again, those pants aren't done yet, but that's just like a couple coats of speed paint on them. And I could just leave them like that and be perfectly content with them. But anyways, I still need to clean it up. This is something else I'm working on. Plus, I've also been putzing around with the skeleton, working with rust effects, because my rust effects, I use Dirty Down Rust, which is an awesome product to creating rust effects. So that is the stuff that I've been painting, but I did get my next batch of miniatures from Next Level. And unfortunately, their recent Kickstarter, they did not add in an orc or a goblin with bows, which is highly disappointing. But that I don't run the business, so I have no say in it. I just buy product from them. And hopefully they'll pull their head out of their ass one day and decide to put an orc and a goblin with bows so that we could actually create a Warhammer Quest miniatures pack to have all the miniatures for Warhammer Quest. Enough about miniatures, let's move on. I did purchase a few things this month. Not a lot of stuff outside of my paints and paintbrushes, but a few RPG books. So basically the Dragonbane core rule book and the Monster Standees pack with a battle map. My local game store got these in. I didn't pre-order these from Free League with the monster manual that they released, because I really didn't think I needed them, but when I saw them at the shop, I was like, might as well pick them up. I wasn't really buying anything else. I'm happy to have them in my collection, especially the Standees. But yeah, I picked those up. I also picked up the Zweihander Lockwood supplement. Zweihander is live on Kickstarter doing a new version. I'm not into all the inner workings of it, but it sounds like another company purchased the rights to it, but the original author is still part of this, and they're doing a Kickstarter, and they're taking the Zweihander book and kind of revising it and making it easier and condensing it down so it's not a huge thick book. It's a little bit more manageable. I do like Zweihander. It's got that old Warhammer fantasy vibe, dark and gritty world. I love the art in it. When they announced they were doing the release of a second edition or an updated version of it, I was on Amazon kind of looking around because this is the only book I didn't own for Zweihander. So I wanted to have it in my collection. And I noticed it was like 50% off on Amazon. So I just picked it up. It was like $27. And it's just an adventure. And it's not that I'm necessarily going to run this solo or anything. But it does have some great location sites and things, I can interact with in this Zweihander world. So I just kind of dug it. I did back the Zweihander Kickstarter simply because I want to see what direction they're going to go in to see if it's something I want to continue to support or not. But I do have all the original stuff, so I don't need to move on to a new edition. But watching interviews and kind of everything I've been seeing, it sounds like they're going to streamline some of the processes, kind of condense some things down. They've added some new mechanics, so it is going to be a new edition. And it seems interesting so far. They put out a playtest rules. I haven't had time to mess around with them. But I am backing it on the Kickstarter. One day, next year, like most Kickstarters, you might see it on my channel. We'll see. I was at a used record store in Arizona. It's called Zia Records, and it's more of a pop culture store. Yes, they sell records and CDs and stuff, but they also sell a lot of movies and random pop culture stuff and books and just a variety of different things that you could be interested in. And they do have a small little RPG board game section where they do sell used products. And I saw this book sitting on the shelf, and it really caught my attention was the cover. I was like, oh, that's just a really cool map. What am I looking at? And then I flipped it over, and basically this is just kind of an index of Gloranthia, which is RuneQuest. And I was just like, what exactly is it? And it's really just kind of a history of RuneQuest. Like, it's just gives you a lot of great information about the game and how it's grown and where it's gone and just all kinds of different product lines and where it was mentioned and just stuff. It was just a cool document. It was published in 2022 as the earliest mark I could find on this as far as a publication date goes. And I just thought it was neat. I just thought it was a cool book. I do love reading about the histories of games that have been around for a long time. And this is one of them. And just neat. Something I thought would look cool on my shelf. But it's just a nice book. It's in great shape. I don't know how much I'm going to get out of it. But, if it provides me a couple hours of entertainment reading, it was only $10. So I'm not going to argue. And I don't know. I got a cool book on my shelf. I picked up some dice. I don't know, you're probably not surprised by that. I happen to pick up a lot of dice, but these are some cool D12 dice that are about critical hits. It's a 5e thing, but I can use these dice for anything. You got a chart here talking about your critical hits. So you got one that's for critical hits in the head, and you got one for the torso, the arms, and the legs, and then the red dice, you got fumbles, so melee, bow, and thrown. So there's cool dice you can roll to be a little bit more random about where something happens. So if someone takes the only downside of these is you got these charts, they tell you, but there's really no way. This looks like an arm one. So you don't really know exactly until you really look at them and figure it out. So you got arm, leg, head, torso. So if I get a critical hit to the head, I got my nose cut off. I cut my nose off to spite my face. So they're just neat. I just thought they were really cool. I am looking a little bit more at 5e, but not necessarily D&D 5e. And these might come in handy. So I picked them up from my local game store. They were $24.99, which may seem a little expensive, but unfortunately I know how dice are made and I know how expensive it is to do all these custom dice. So to me it was a fair price. So that's why I picked them up. But for critical hits, why not? Pretty cool stuff. So that's all the RPG stuff I bought. I did purchase one more thing, and that was to help the channel. I don't know if you've noticed in my last couple videos and in this video, my audio has changed a little bit. That's because I picked up the Rode wireless mics that clip on to my shirt. And the reason I did this is after I made the video on the bookbinding project that I did for the repair job, I noticed every time I set the book down, I heard a thump, and I liked it. I hit the table, I hear a thump. I was using a Yeti microphone, and the Yeti is super sensitive when you hit the table or you hit your surface, and it will pick that kind of stuff up. I know they make hanging devices. I've tried all those things, but they get in the way, and I don't know. I was just getting frustrated with where things were at as far as my microphone went. Not so much the audio quality. I don't do any filters or anything like that on my audio, but it was just the hitting of the desk bugged me. And even though like I'm seeing the screen and I'm seeing the meter, when I hit the desk, it picks it up. But when I'd hit the desk with the Yeti on the desk, it would spike. It would go super loud, and it was just annoying. So I picked up this microphone setup. I just got the wireless ME one, which is just the receiver or transmitter and the microphone. It's the Pro version, had two microphones. I didn't need that. I'm solo. What's cool about the Rode Wireless ME is the receiver, or the one that you plug into your computer, actually has a mic on it as well. So if I wanted to run a long cable to the mic and still be wired to a cable, I could just use the one microphone and be just fine. But neither here nor there. I did pick that up. I thought it was kind of cool, and I'm hoping that it's going to improve, just taking away some of that background noise that's happening when I hit my desk. So with all that said, that kind of wraps up this journal page. I do have some pretty big plans for my next RPG session. I'm just trying to get some stuff wrapped up around the house before I launch that. And I'm going to be doing some cool stuff, I think. But we'll see if the YouTube community as a whole thinks the same way. But thank you for watching, and have a great day.